Welcome again, guys. Welcome to this next episode. Again, this is Leroy Viamille, Mills Realty Managing Broker, and we are at the Mills Social Talk podcast. And as I said last week, I wanted to kind of go over, the red line. As you know, we talked about redlining last week, and I wanted to be able to just recap, redlining, where it came from. It came from the 1930s, where the banks. And if you haven't heard, please go back to last episode, how the banks were getting information from folks and how they were putting the minority or the poor community in a box, and the green was, oh yeah, we'll lend you the money. The gray, you're still desirable. If you're in the yellow box, you're in a declining neighborhood, and the red box was totally for the poorer class of people, and you will have a hard time getting a mortgage if you will ever get it already. They may just take your application and throw it out. So we talked about, as I said in the last week's episode, that we had a lot of migration into the suburban 1930s, 40s, 50s, and the city was where the poorer class of people were staying. And I'm just want to recap of how the banks, they uses this graph. If the building is 50 years or older, if it had a 90% occupancy, if it's poorly repaired, and the ownership, if it's 40% or less, you get into this red box that says, hey, you know what, we're not really feeling you when it comes to mortgage. Even though you may be a great person and you're financially okay, but you're within that red box. So that's just sort of what we talked about last week, and how, and I want to bring that to today's, because the reason why I want to talk about this topic is because I have ran into this particular redlining on a personal basis, and for my clients, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of how we overcame, because we actually overcame. So if you're in this situation, I want you to reach out to Mills Realty, reach out to me, and we will try to figure out how we can overcome this situation. So as many of you know who's listening, I've been in business a long time and have quite a vast experience in the real estate industry. So we did overcame this particular problem, not with the same bank, but we went out and we'll talk about it as we go along. So again, redlining is just basically, putting you in a box. You can't get a mortgage. You're in this neighborhood. It doesn't work for you. The banks, mortgage companies say, we don't want to touch you. Now coming forward, I want to tell you guys, and I'm gonna jump right in. I'm not gonna jump right in. Just to tell you how that affected me, and I'm gonna give you 3 scenarios how it affected me personally and my clients. And this is kind of just for me and you guys out there who's listening, for me and you personally. So over the past year and a half, I ran into redlining and not that I wasn't aware of it. I was aware of it and fought it. So now that I've fought it and I've overcame it, I want to kind of tell you guys what we did. Okay? So I'm gonna take 3 neighborhoods that it happened to me 2 in Chicago and 1 in the northern suburb. Well, I'm gonna say North Chicago to be exact. So 1 in Grand Crossing, 1 in Humboldt Park. I'm going to take 3 scenarios, and 1 in North Chicago. Now, this can happen to you too. And again, if it's happened to you, reach out to Mills Realty. You can send us an email at millsreal.com. You can send us an email. You can call us at 773-764-9547. And we will try to guide you through this. Not that, we're the expert, but we'll give you the advice of how we went through. And we will kind of work with you to get you through this. Now, first case study, and this is my personal case study, not anybody else. This is what I've gone through. Okay, So I had a client that lives in Grand Crossing, and she owned a 2-flat. Now I sold her this 2-flat 5 years ago, 4 years ago. This 2-flat, I sold it for $136,000 4 years ago, before the pandemic. She called me and she says, as her broker, she always wants my advice. So if you don't have a broker, please always use a broker, whether it's Mills Realty or someone else. We're here to serve. Our job as brokers in Illinois is to serve the community. And we want to make sure that the community is well served when it comes to real estate. She called me and says, Haley, I want to sell. I'm sorry. I want to sell. No, I didn't want to sell. I want to refi my 2-flat. I said, okay. First, let's see what your value is. I said, okay. Your value is I told her about $245,000. She says, great. We went to the bank. Went through a process. Now, by the way, I'm coughing because I'm just so passionate about what I'm saying. It's making me cough. She went to the bank. She says, now this girl, client of mine, doing well financially, doing very well financially, making more than enough money to refi her property, has credit score of over 700. She came back, the bank came back and says, there's no, we can only do $170,000 on her refi. I said, that's ridiculous. That is literally ridiculous that the bank will come back and says it's only a $170,000 appraisal. I called the bank. I said, there's no way this appraiser can come in with $170,000. There's absolutely no way. I fought the bank. I pulled comps from the bank and I said, here are the comps. As a broker, I have that ability to pull comps. I see what the appraiser is seeing. I'm not an appraiser, but I can see what they're seeing and I can see what they're using. I gave the appraiser many comps to show that the value is not there. The value is the value that he gives me is crazy. I did that. Back and forth. But I believe that the banks did not want to give her the loan, or the bank did not want to work in her neighborhood. I was a little upset. We did this for, my gosh, back and forth for a while. The bank said no. What I did, I said, okay, let's take a break. We will go to another bank. We went to another bank. She got it done at the value that I said. So I'm not saying all banks are doing it. I'm saying that the bank that she chose did not want to give her the value, or the appraiser did not want to give her the value. Even though I had proof of what the value is, they decide they don't want to give the value. Even though is a great buyer, a great client. Okay, so I believe that was redlining. Another case scenario. I'm gonna give you, and the reason why I'm doing it because I had a personal bout with this with the bank. I refied my own property. The bank gave me an appraisal of $255,000. I called the bank. Now, I told them that is also crazy. It's another bank. because it's crazy. The property next door, about a block away, exactly the same property, sold for $350,000. The property next door, smaller, sold for $275,000. I'm talking about next door, same property. And the banks gave me $255,000. Why? I don't know. I was okay with it because I didn't need the higher value, so I was fine. If I needed a higher value, I would have gone someplace else. But it was okay. I did not need it, so I said okay. Even though I got to a point where I'm like, why is this happening? Now, this happened more times than I can tell you, but I'm just giving you these 3 case scenarios of what I believe. Now, this was on the west side of the city. I didn't fight it. Like I said, it's my personal experience. Didn't fight it because I didn't think I did not need the value. So I said, okay. I'll tell you another case study. So I had a client in North Chicago. I sold him this property 15 years ago. 15 years ago. He called me, he wanted to refi. I said, okay, refi, what is my value? I went out, I got the value. I told him his value is $160,000. Okay, no problem. I said, absolutely, you can refi. It's no problem. I'm gonna look at your value, because if I have to sell your property, it's gonna go on the market for at least $160. No problem. We went ahead, did the loan. Now we actually went to another bank, and the same thing happens. The bank came in at $136,000. I sent out comps to the bank to say, y'all are nuts. Why are you guys doing this? Here are comps to show that this property is worth minimum $160,000. We fought it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The bank decided the bank did not want to raise the value, even though we are sending out comps to show the value. So keep in mind, this can happen to you guys too. If you're listening, it can happen to you. But just that my clients have me to fight. So if you don't have someone to fight for you, please reach out to us and we'll try to do this, because we are, as a real estate broker, I do want to be able to make sure that everyone is treated fairly when it comes to their property and the value of their property. I mean, we here at Mills Realty, we are passionate about making sure that everyone gets a fair shot when it comes to real estate. We don't care who you are, where you live. We want you to have a fair shot. So, in this case scenario, I talked to the bank back and forth. We went ahead. And the bank decided, no, your property is only worth $136,000. So that blew my mind, right? That blew my mind that they can come in and say something like that. Now, I want to say, whether or not these banks are redlining, I don't know. So I have no idea. Whether or not the appraiser didn't do his job properly in these 3 cases, I don't know. Well, I know they didn't do their job properly, but what information they use and how they arrive, I mean, what I see is what they see, and of course, that we should come to the same conclusion, or at least somewhere close. So I went ahead and I looked at the numbers again, and I said, there's no way the bank can arrive at these numbers. This is just not fair to you. I mean, you got great credit, great job, great income. It makes no sense. So anyway, I went ahead and I said, okay, let's fight this. We fought it. We lost our case with that bank. We went to another bank. And I told the bank, I said, listen, I'm not sure which appraiser you're going to use because we have no idea who we're using for appraiser. But I said, this is what's been happening to us. I'm going to give you up front what the value is. Because I'm not going to, these are the numbers are where the numbers are. So we went ahead and looked at the value and we say, here are the numbers. The bank, a previous bank came in at 136. There's no way, because look at this. The bank came in, and that bank came in at a value of $165,000. Now this is like 2 months later, 3 months later, or 4 months later to be exact. I said the bank came in, so this bank came in at the value $5,000 more than I gave them in the beginning. I said it was 160. They came in at 165. I said, okay. So I'm like, fabulous. That's the actual value, right? So I told my client, I said, that's the value we need to have. And here are the reasons why. So the bank came in, we got it done, we got the refinancing done. So I gave you 3 case studies. One in Grand Crossing, my own personal, and one in North Chicago. What I'm trying to say, if you live in an area that the banks are depressing, we will do everything we can here at Mills Realty to actually bring your, either change banks, give you advice, move forward to a different banks, something that you can say, you know what, my value is not $100,000, it's $150,000. Now, bringing all this around, there's a reason why I chose this topic, this 2-part series today. And I'm going to tell you why, because we as realtors, we are advocate for everyone that buys and sells your real estate. That's your job. We're advocate. We'll go there, we'll go to bat for you, and we'll make sure that you're doing okay. Now, there's a reason why I have this 2-part series, because I want to come around and tell you the reason why I chose this particular topic. Now, the board, the Chicago Realtors, came up with this. And I'm going to read this to you because this coincides with everything that I just spoke about. So the Illinois Realtors released a study on the role of race in home valuation and lending. So we as realtors, we are the ones on the front line. We know what's going on when it comes to the real estate industry. We are not the big guys out there saying, hey, we'll sell you a property. We know what the value is. You know, people come to say, hey, you know, I got from a website and my valuation is $300,000. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, I don't know where you get that from. Well, this company says it's worth $300,000. I'm like, I walk into your house and I say, well, no, it's worth about $280 or $270 or $350, whatever that matter is. So we, as realtors, on the front line. We as brokers on the front line. So let me read what it says. Illinois Realtors release study in the role of race in home valuation and lending. This is what it says. Short note. Illinois Realtors release a study, color, it starts like this, color and collateral, which shows that race plays a potentially large role in the rejection of home loan application and approval values of home in Illinois. That's so important. So this is by the Illinois Realtors. I have a study that says race. I'm going to read that again because that's important. Release a study, color and collateral, which shows race plays a potential large role in the rejection of home loan application and appraisal value of home in Illinois. Now, this coincides with the past from last week's series, as I'm giving you the case study for this week's series. Okay, so and let me tell you what they found. They found a substantial disparity in the denial rates of African American and white applicants. A substantial disparity, that's the word, in denial of African American and white applicants. African Americans applicants in Illinois are twice as likely to have mortgage denied due to lack of collateral. And then neighborhood appears to be rewarded by appraiser. Neighborhood homogeneity appears to be rewarded by appraiser. White borrowers were more likely to have their mortgage, white borrowers were more likely to have their mortgages denied if they live in a neighborhood with more people of color. So even whites were more likely to have their mortgage denied if they live in a red neighborhood. However, blacks and Hispanics, Latino borrowers were relatively less likely to have their mortgage denied if they live in a more diverse neighborhood. So this is what Illinois Realtor says. Even if you're white and you're living in a minority neighborhood, you can get it denied. If you're of a minority race and you live in a more diverse neighborhood, then you more likely for you to get it approved. So this is what they come up with. So for me, this is very important for people for you guys to share this video. Share this video, because if there's any other, I'm just saying this is what the Illinois Realtor study had released, okay? And that's why I really want to bring back Redlining, not bring it back, but I really want to talk about it last week and this week so people can understand that there's still some issues that we got to deal with, but as brokers, we have the responsibility to actually protect our clients. We have the responsibility to make sure that everyone is being treated fairly, which is most important, fairly. And we have the responsibility that if someone is not being treated fairly, we got to go to bat for them. And as I read this study from the Illinois Realtors who were part of us, I wanted to kind of give a breakdown of where all that comes from and how that ends up. And this is the reason why I actually went ahead and did this podcast, because I think it was so important for you guys to understand that these things still happen. It can happen to you. It happens to me. It happens to some of my clients. And we want to be able to break this cycle. If there's a cycle, and I'm not sure if there's a cycle, but if there's something going on, we want to be able to break it and to make sure that everyone that buys or sells, any homeowner that buys or sells real estate in Illinois is treated fairly. So again, guys, I want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Again, this is a Mill Social Talk podcast. You can hear this podcast wherever you listen to the podcast. Please log in, share the podcast. This is so important because it's not only happening to me, but it happened to other people, or my clients, and I'm sure it may happen to you and you're not aware of it. So my job right now, these past 2 weeks, to educate you. And if there's any more information that you need, please let us know. We will come back. We will come back and talk about it. If you want to know more about it, please let us know. Again, please call us. Go to millsreal.com. Send us a message. Go to 773-895-6284. That's my cell. 773-764-9547. Please call the office at any time. Nice talking to you guys, and we hope to see you on the next podcast. Thanks, guys. you.